I, of course, asked myself the question. I don't think anyone who's been in government at any point in the last 20 years doesn't, at the moment, ask themselves this question: how on earth did I not know this was happening? I was the Chancellor of the Exchequer for 6 of these years over which this scandal was taking place. And, I've really racked my brains and I cannot think of a single conversation I had about it or a single piece of paper that I saw about it. I didn't have a constituency case, which might have brought it more to my attention. And I think it has asked, certainly I've been asking myself really some quite sort of deep questions about, like, is the system basically somehow set up in the wrong way, that these arm's length bodies, the way over the last few decades we've pushed off different agencies from the sort of centre of government, of which the post office is an example, because it was wholly owned by the government, and it was the government that decided to introduce this new computer system, the Horizon system. And yet over, Conservative, Labour and coalition governments, the scandal then unfolded and ministers seemed completely unaware, including, as you just pointed out, the current leader of the Liberal Democrats and the post office minister himself in the government I was part of, Ed Davey.
There is a public inquiry now, which has been underway for some time. It's interesting that this breaks into the news, but the public inquiry is already happening. So in some sense, it was on the government's agenda, but it's not been on the public agenda quite like it is now. And it's provoked the response from the Prime Minister and Prime Minister's questions with emergency legislation to reverse all of those false convictions. And we'll find out the nature of the conspiracy, what really went wrong. But you are right. There's something about the post office as a body which was hierarchical, was closed, and also had its own prosecutorial powers. So it wasn't needing to call in the police in the large majority of cases, not needing public prosecutors. It had those powers itself. And it seems to have been impervious to pressure from individual members of Parliament, and seemingly managed to prevent ministers in the civil service from really knowing what was going on.
There have been these scandals where things happen and no one kind of calls it out and no one shines a light on something that's going on. And, the post office is one of the great, much-loved institutions of the UK. And yet, certainly if the drama is anything to go by, some pretty shocking behaviour is happening inside the post office, where they are hounding, in some cases literally to death, these good citizens who are running their branches. And, I'm not always the most reflective person. I kind of think in government you have to make difficult decisions and, often things you do aren't very popular, but someone's got to make them. But I have really thought hard, like, how was I in government while part of this was happening and didn't know? And I want some answers myself, for myself.
It's interesting, the role of the individual members of Parliament, because people don't always understand what a local MP does. And, they campaign on issues and they represent groups. But one of the things you can do as a member of Parliament, when the system has failed, when there's been something gone wrong, whether it's with a public sector agency or a private company, you can step in and try and make the system work better for that individual. I think if I was a minister in my department and I was looking at an issue where MPs were complaining and there was an apparent injustice, I think I would learn from the Ed Davey example and want to get on the case.
There is no doubt that the next time a Mr. Bates comes knocking at a junior minister's door, they're going to get the appointment that they didn't get in 2010.